Welcome to this explainer. Okay, right off the bat, I want you to just close your eyes for a second. Imagine the extreme, completely visceral stakes of the world's most dangerous sport. You are literally strapped into a missile on wheels, hurtling forward at mind-bending speeds, and completely surrounded by this deafening cacophony of roaring engines. This isn't just about driving, no. It's a profound test of human endurance, cutting-edge science, and nerves of absolute steel. Today, we're going to break down the anatomy of Formula One. We're going to explore exactly how a gritty, old-school endurance race completely transformed into the highly engineered, high-stakes, billion-dollar global spectacle we know today.
Let's start right at the beginning with Section 1, the extreme human cost.
Because before we even talk about the cars, we really have to talk about the physical toll on the drivers. 4 kilos. Just imagine sitting in a violently vibrating cockpit where the air temperature sits around a scorching 45 degrees Celsius and can actually rocket up to a blistering 60 degrees. Because of this insane heat and humidity, a driver can sweat out 2 to 3 kilograms of their own body weight just by completing a totally normal race. And in the absolute most extreme conditions, they're losing up to 4 kilos in just an hour and 45 minutes of driving. It's an absolutely brutal test of hydration and stamina.
And to really ground this reality, you just have to listen to how the drivers themselves talk about it. When you ask them about racing in notoriously hot and humid circuits like Singapore or Malaysia, their response is usually pretty blunt. Yeah, those ones are killer. They aren't just steering a car out there. They are fighting the elements, fighting sheer exhaustion, and wrestling with up to 6 Gs of force at every single sharp turn.
Moving on to Section 2, let's look at the evolution of the Grand Prix.
You know, the term Grand Prix literally translates from French to the Great Prize, which honestly makes perfect sense when you look back at the sport's origins. The governing body, the FIA, was actually established way back in 1904, and the very first French Grand Prix? That took place in 1906. But early racing looked absolutely nothing like it does today. Back then, they weren't testing raw speed on a closed circuit. They were testing pure, rugged endurance. Races stretched from city to city on normal dirt roads, with some events, like Le Mans, lasting a grueling 24 hours. It really wasn't until 1946 that organized professional racing began, which led to the drafting of specific rules, the formulas, in 1947. That mandated things like single-seater, open-wheel cars, ultimately culminating in the very first official world championship in 1950.
And the scale of the sport has just completely exploded since that inaugural season. That first 1950 championship, which was won by an Italian driver for Alfa Romeo, consisted of just 7 races across 7 countries. Fast forward to the 2023 season, and we're looking at a massive, globe-trotting 23-race spectacle. That brings us to Section 3, engineering marvels and safety.
Formula One is definitely as much a technology competition as a driving one, and that becomes incredibly obvious when you look at the physics. Think about this. When a large commercial airplane hits about 250 kilometers per hour, the shape of its wings creates lift and it takes off. Well, an F1 car goes much, much faster than that. So without specialized engineering, it would literally fly right off the track. To combat this, F1 cars are designed with the exact opposite aerodynamic philosophy. They create negative lift. The peculiar shape of the car essentially pushes it down onto the track, producing a staggering 5 Gs of downforce. This immense pressure provides the tire traction they desperately need to execute those impossibly sharp turns at breakneck speeds.
To truly understand what these machines are capable of, let's talk about their absolute limits. The official race speed record is a blistering 372.5 kilometers per hour set by Valtteri Bottas in Mexico back in 2016. But the extreme potential of an F1 car, that was tested in 2005. Honda took their car out to a wide-open, dry lake bed for a record test and hit an incomprehensible 397.7 kilometers per hour. Just wild. But, of course, with speeds like that comes extreme danger. Formula One is widely considered one of the world's most dangerous sports. Tragically, 52 drivers have died in its history, including the legendary 3-time champion Ayrton Senna in 1994. To combat this reality, the FIA forces teams to implement some seriously advanced technological defenses. Drivers wear multi-layered fireproof suits, gloves fitted with biometric sensors that actually transmit their heartbeats directly to medical staff in real time, carbon fiber helmets to protect their vertebrae, and seatbelts that are so tight they literally require a second person just to help fasten them.
And perhaps the most groundbreaking, yet initially super controversial safety innovation is the halo. Introduced in 2018, it's a Grade 5 titanium bar placed directly above the driver's head. When it was first announced, a lot of purists were furious. They complained it ruined the classic open cockpit look and called it downright ugly. But this single piece of metal is strong enough to sustain the weight of 2 African elephants, and it has undeniably saved numerous lives in rollover crashes over the last few years.
Now, let's dive into Section 4, the billion-dollar business.
Because to fund all these crazy engineering marvels and safety protocols, you need an incomprehensible amount of money. Just look at the 2018 financials from Toro Rosso, the sister team to Red Bull. They spent a massive $181.1 million just to compete. Their total revenue? $183.6 million. So after taxes, their actual profit was a razor-thin $1.8 million. For these constructor companies, the financial risk is astronomically high, and the direct profit margins are exceptionally low. The real return on investment actually comes from global brand publicity and developing cutting-edge tech like carbon fiber or hybrid powertrains that eventually trickles down into the consumer cars that you and I drive every day.
Now, to stop the absolute richest teams from just buying their way to victory, the FIA introduced a budget cap. For the 2023 season, no team was allowed to spend more than $135 million on their cars. The goal here is to force a level of equality in the engineering competition. But, and this is a massive but, there is one major exception to this rule. The cap does not apply to driver salaries.
And because driver pay is completely exempt from that budget cap, we see massive financial inequality between the athletes themselves. On one hand, you have premium, multi-time champions like Max Verstappen commanding an estimated $60 million a year. Contrast that with someone like Mick Schumacher racing for a still-growing team like Haas, who is earning around $1 million. That disparity is just staggering. This whole financial and technological reality creates such a fascinating human story within the sport. Because the car itself plays such an outsized role in winning, there's a really common saying among fans: the best drivers do not win as many championships. A perfect example is Fernando Alonso. He is widely considered by diehard fans to be one of the greatest drivers in F1 history when it comes to pure technique. Yet he only has 2 championships to his name. Ultimately, the team with the most money and the best technology very often outpaces pure raw driving skill.
Finally, let's explore Section 5, F1's Indian connection and the future of the sport.
India's relationship with F1 is actually really notable. We've seen Indian drivers like Narayan Karthikeyan and Karun Chandak take the wheel, but the absolute biggest highlight was having an actual team on the grid, Force India. Their journey was, frankly, nothing short of chaotic. Businessman Vijay Mallya bought Spiker F1 in 2007 and debuted as Force India in 2008 with major Indian sponsors. Then, in 2011, the Sahara Group bought a massive 42.5% stake, and the team actually showed incredible promise. They peaked in the 2016 and 2017 seasons by securing a very respectable 4th place overall as a mid-level team. But that momentum came to a screeching halt with a dramatic downfall in 2018. Right before the summer break, financial documents reveal the team was drowning. They had only $315,000 in the bank against $37 million in loans. Concurrently, massive legal controversies were unfolding back home. Vijay Mallya fled to the UK, accused of owing roughly 100 billion rupees to Indian banks, while the Enforcement Directorate made claims of money laundering involving the team. Meanwhile, Subrata Roy of Sahara faced his own severe legal scrutiny. With Mallya's assets frozen worldwide, the team was forced into a 9.6 billion rupee sale to Canadian businessman Lawrence Stroll. That completely severed the Indian ownership and led to multiple rebrandings of the team.
Stepping back from the boardroom dramas, the sport as a whole is facing some pretty intense modern criticism. Many people argue that F1 is an environmentally destructive spectacle, and this valid concern gave rise to Formula E, a purely electric racing series. They actually held an event right on the closed city streets of Hyderabad recently, completely ditching the traditional gas-guzzling racetracks. And honestly, that electric alternative is likely where this entire industry is heading. The FIA has assigned the rights for Formula E until the year 2039. When those rights eventually expire, it's widely expected across the entire motorsport world that Formula One and Formula E will merge into a single 100% electric sport. Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought to ponder. As the clock ticks toward 2039, will stripping Formula One of its roaring, gas-guzzling engines and the heavy smell of fuel completely kill the visceral, edge-of-your-seat identity that made it a great prize in the very first place?
Or, in a rapidly evolving world, is going electric the absolute only way to save this billion-dollar spectacle? Let that sink in. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the mechanics behind the world's most extreme arenas.